The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm so excited to be here with you this morning. We've got a big show for you today. So excited. We're going to start off with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. She is with us this morning live in the studio, and she's going to be answering your questions later on during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Allspot Jackson will be joining me. We've got a wonderful guest. Karen Nohelty is going to be with us to talk about some recent research that you're going to find really interesting. And then, I believe for the first time anywhere, we are having Dr. Kerry Magro. Kerry Magro has been on this show many times since he was just graduating from college. He is a young man who was diagnosed with autism at a very young age, went on to get his, since he started being on the show, he got his college degree, then he got his master's degree, then was out working in the field of social media for a very large player. And then he decided to go back and get his doctorate. And as of yesterday, he passed, he did his, defended his dissertation, I guess is what you call it. And he is officially a doctor, and he's joining us here today to talk about his new children's book that's coming out next week. So that will be very exciting. We're thrilled to have him on the show. Now, all of that plus in the news, of course, we're going to be talking about Amy Schumer and her fabulous husband, plus more news. But the whole show is meant to be interactive, which is why Traven has been showing you some of the different ways that you can connect with us. I do want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. Our website looks brand new because it is brand new. We hope that you guys are able to search topics and videos more than you ever have before. And don't forget that the old things that were there that you really liked are still there. If you want to watch the show live, when we are live at the top of the web page, it says live with a little red orange dot. If you click on that, it will start the live show playing. If you want to chat with us, the chat has been moved to the lower right-hand corner. All you have to do is click on the chat. It opens up a box, and then you and I can have a conversation in real time. That's totally free, totally anonymous. We do like it if you give us an idea of where in the world that you're writing to us from, because all resources are not the same in all places. I wish it was a level playing field, but my goodness, it is not. So please let us know what we can do to help, because you know what I always say, si se puede, right? Reach out. We hold hands. We can get through this together. All right, my friends, let's not waste any more time, because it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. For those of you who don't know her, she's a true expert in the field of autism. I believe the preeminent expert in the field of autism in our time or any time. She's been working in this field for how many decades?
4 decades.
4 decades.
4 decades.
And working with the entire spectrum. We're talking about very small children, infants, all the way up through senior citizens. One of the many things that I love about Dr. Granpeesheh is that she looks at individuals that are on the autism spectrum as individuals on the autism spectrum. She sees them as entire whole people that have many needs and looks to address those needs. But she also looks at the whole unit around that person, the family, the community, and tries to help all of us. And that is life-changing. I know that for a fact because my family was changed by the services that she helped to provide through the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm eternally grateful.
And we enjoyed every step.
That's so not true, but thank you for lying about it. In any case, I'm thrilled that she is here with us for this period of time to answer your questions. You can be writing into us on the live feature at autism-live.com or at any one of the other sites. We'll be checking it on Facebook in just a minute. And we love it when you guys write in on Facebook and tell us where you are in the world, because that's particularly fun. Okay, I do want to get started, though, with a question that was sent to us a couple of weeks ago by a friend of the show. David Phillips has been on the show before, and he is a really wonderful young man. He has his own website now, Unlocking the Keys to Autism, and he asked specifically if we would get to this question. He says, so my question is, in 2013, as part of the new diagnostic criteria for autism, they got rid of Asperger's syndrome in the DSM-5. But Dr. Doreen had said that if you were already formally diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, that you should be grandfathered in until you had to qualify for insurance funding again. But if it was a first-time diagnosis, the professionals that diagnose autism were supposed to follow the new DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for autism, which would mean there would be no Asperger's syndrome. But an individual that I know, her brother was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome in 2016 as an adult, and told this individual,
I told this.
and excuse me, thank you. And I told this individual that I did not think that this diagnosis was valid because of the new DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for autism, taking out Asperger's syndrome. Now, I told her the one way that I thought it could be valid is if they diagnosed him with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and then listed Asperger's syndrome as an Asperger's type as part of a modifier or specifier. That is the only way I told her that I thought it could be listed, but that cannot be the actual diagnosis. So I would like some clarification from Dr. Granpeesheh on this issue, yada, yada, yada. And I just want to clarify for people that he is referring to right before the diagnostic criteria came out, we filmed an episode with you where you talked about, but this was in 2013, and you talked about, here is what will happen, this is how it will happen.
That's right. That's right.
So that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, sounds good. Hi, DJ. Nice to hear from you again. So let me address your question here. Yes, so you are right, what you said in terms of the DSM-5 does not have a diagnosis called Asperger's. It has a diagnosis of ASD, Asperger's type. So anyone who is diagnosing after the DSM-5 came out, essentially, usually when a new DSM comes out, we give about 6 months, maybe 8 months of time for clinicians to learn the new DSM. And so basically after the DSM-5 came out, which was back in 2013, by 2014 or so, anybody should be diagnosing correctly, which basically means they should be diagnosing with ASD, Asperger's type, for this individual. Now, I just want to tell you that we shouldn't get hung up on the word valid, because there's a lot of people who are still to this day, believe it or not, I still see diagnoses of Asperger's. And I'm like, okay, they didn't know, they can't do that. I still see a lot of incorrect use of DSM-5. It just happens because clinicians haven't taught themselves everything and they haven't read all the details, and possibly the person who did this diagnosis is not specializing in ASD, but is perhaps a pediatrician or is like a broader practice. So they don't really know exactly the wording to use. Right now, I still get a lot of people who diagnose with an ASD and they will write something like ASD level 1. That doesn't mean anything at all. Like, you are not supposed to use levels. You're supposed to say requires support, requires substantial support, et cetera, et cetera. And also, even if you say level 1, which essentially means this individual doesn't need a lot of support, you're going to have to say which domain, you know, level 1 in what? In social communication or in repetitive behaviors. So a lot of people still use the terminology incorrectly. That doesn't necessarily mean that the individual who received that diagnosis didn't have a valid diagnosis. It's not valid for the purposes of, I mean, an insurance company could come back and say, this diagnosis doesn't work. Like, it's not valid. We're not going to fund it. Go get the right wording. But it doesn't mean that the individual does not have the symptoms of Asperger's. So I think we don't want to get too into the terminology here. But, you know, a lot of, I wouldn't assume that the person isn't actually suffering from the same symptoms. I would just say that perhaps the person who diagnosed them hadn't kept up with the DSM terminology.
There you go. So hopefully that helps to clarify. And we had made the comment last week that it's never a good idea to argue with somebody about what they say their diagnosis is unless you're a qualified person. Just, etiquette.
Yeah.
You know,
and maybe you were doing it from kindness, but, you know, let them go and experience their own thing, and either that diagnosis will be accepted by their insurance or their payer, or it won't, in which case they'll have to go get it reworded correctly.
There you go. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to be back, please, and we're going to be checking in on Facebook when we come back, so please stick with us.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Welcome back. We are here with Dr. Doreen Grant-Boucher, and I'm looking at the Facebook, and I know that there are comments there, but I can't see them, and I don't know why, and I'm going to figure that out. But we do have other comments that have come into us and other questions. So I want to start with this one because it's a particularly fabulous one. Hi, thank you for such an informative show. I'm a BCBA, and for those of you who that's a new term, that's a board certified behavior analyst. I'm a BCBA and working with a 13-year-old girl. She does not make any decisions on her own and will ask her peers to make a decision for her, even for simple things such as what color marker to use. If her therapist does not make a decision for her, she leaves the room to ask someone else. How do we teach her to make her own decisions?
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah, and I have a couple of quick suggestions. So one is, don't let her leave the room until she makes a decision. And that's number one. Like, literally, she needs to make a decision before she's going to leave. Second thing is, you could actually even make the decision at the door. In other words, you have to pick a card. And if you pick, you can't see what's written on the card, but if one card says stay and the other card says leave, and she has to pick it from the back, but she has to pick one. Okay. And if she picks one that says leave, she can leave. And or you can even show it to her, and if she really wants to leave the room, then she has to pick the card that says leave. And the other thing is, have her make positive, negative choices. So don't start with two things that are neutral. If she's hungry, let her choose a food that she likes, and the alternative choice is one that she hates. If she needs to go to the bathroom, have her choose the card that says, I need to go to the bathroom, as opposed to the one that says you have to stay. Like, give her choices where there's a definite, clear choice for her. Start there. If you know her preferences, like food preferences, anything preferences, time preferences, clothing preferences, jewelry, makeup, whatever is her, I don't know anything about, she's 13, so you're going to have a lot of preferences. And have her choose, give her the option of choosing something she really likes versus something she really dislikes. And then gradually introduce things that are also neutral. When we do choice, the first thing we do is always a dichotomy that's pretty clear. So it's like, the child is definitely motivated to choose the right thing. Mm-hmm. And that'll help with just choices. And then you gradually have to just put her in a position where even if the two stimuli are neutral, she still has to make a choice before she can go to the next activity. And really, that's as simple as it gets.
Well, it makes me think of, there's a video in Skills, and Skills is a tool that you can use that does many different things, but it has lessons, and a lot of lessons have a video that you can click on that shows a therapist doing the lesson with a child. Right. And there is a video of Logan Shepherd that is doing choices, and the therapist is sitting there, and she has a bottle of Italian salad dressing and a lollipop.
Right. That is for the reading facial expression lesson.
Oh, I thought it was for choices.
Yeah, no, it's for reading facial expression. So basically, what she does is, she has a lollipop and salad dressing. Right. And this is the period of time when Logan didn't really like he hated salad dressing. Right. And so she would say, which one do I want? That was the stimulus. Okay. That's the ST. What do I want? And he, of course, being at that point, I think 2 to 3, says the lollipop, right? And gives her the lollipop. Right. And she takes the lollipop and licks it and then goes like a facial expression, like, I hate this. That part. Yeah. And then puts it down and says, I'm hungry. Which one do I want? And the lesson is that Logan learns right away from her facial expression that wasn't the one. Even if I like that one, it's the theory of mind lesson. Right. She doesn't. So I need to now try the other thing. Gives her the salad dressing, because in the beginning she does the lollipop and does the salad dressing and goes, So then now he's reading, and then finally gives her the salad dressing. She sips it and says, yeah, or something like that.
Okay, I totally had it remembered wrong. So it's totally not, that doesn't apply to this, but it gives us the opportunity to say that there are videos that demonstrate these things.
And you could use the same stimuli, and you could put in front of him the lollipop, because we knew at that time his preference was lollipop. Right. Put the lollipop in the salad dressing and say, pick one. And that's just making the choice, right? In this case, the BCBA just wants to make sure this girl makes a choice.
Okay. I have a question. Yes. Because every once in a while I get to ask a question. There's an article that we're going to cover in the news in a little while. You know, every once in a while this sort of pops up, and it has popped its ugly head again because we're just about to head into April. And the title of the article is, "Can Some Children Outgrow Autism?" Now this, and then when you read the article, about 3 paragraphs down, it refers to the fact that there are studies that show that children who get intensive therapy can get to the point where they no longer qualify for the diagnosis.
Right.
But what gets me furious is that the title is, "Can They Outgrow Autism?" Because I think even though technically, you know, a child gets to the point where they grow skills and no longer have the, you know, the diagnosis apply, so you could squint at it and go outgrow. The connotation of outgrow is that it just happened organically. That the, you know, the autism fairy came in and bonked you on the head and you no longer have autism. Which to me is an insult of all the work that you do and that we as parents do and that our kids do. And also in the article it says, is it possible that some kids are misdiagnosed? That also ticks me off. That because my child does well, some people tell me, yeah, I don't think he really had autism. And that completely negates all the hard work that was done by people. And I'm just wondering what your words matter. What, so the outgrow thing really tears my ticket. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think it becomes a little bit clear that the author may have had an intention by putting all of that in one article, right? Because when you put the words like outgrow and misdiagnosis in the same article, it gives the implied intention that, oh, you know, there's autism, there's just a lot of kids who are misdiagnosed, and even if they're behaving slightly differently, they'll outgrow it. Okay, so that is all not true. So the way I look at it in regards to outgrow, first of all, misdiagnosis, there's misdiagnosis in everything. That means nothing. You know, so we're not talking about the percentage of kids who are misdiagnosed. There's probably less than 1% of kids that are misdiagnosed now. Same in 1994. Like, I mean, you know, so misdiagnosis, nothing, means nothing. There's if the misdiagnosis is held stable between now and, let's say, 1994, when we had another DSM, then the only thing that we can conclude is that from that time, it's gone from about 1 in, I don't know how many, several hundred children to 1 in 50 now, right? So it's been increasing. So let's put the misdiagnosis thing on the side. The whole concept of outgrowing does imply that nothing else happens during the course of time, but the passage of time. And so with the passage of time, if it was, I could only answer that question really if we had the capability of putting someone in a closet for 15 years and nothing else happened in their environment, okay? Because autistic children, like anyone else, learn from their environment. The real question is, do they learn enough to catch up? It's really that simple. So a child with autism or any other kind of disability is going to have certain strengths. They're going to have a couple of things where they're not at their age level. They're just below their age level. Now, some kids are significantly below various areas. Other kids are not significantly below. They're slightly below. So, for example, an individual with Asperger's type is not going to have as many deficits as a child who has very clear autism, right? Even within the ASD spectrum, a child who is 1-1, so in other words, basically has very minimal support needs, is definitely going to have fewer deficits than a child who has significant support needs. A nonverbal child is going to need to learn more than a verbal child. A child who has attention difficulty is going to have to learn more than a child who doesn't have. So there's all these levels, right? Now, so the time factor has to do with what they are exposed to and what they learn in that time. So now if someone is just living a normal life and they go to school, and if they, let's say, have Asperger's type and they have an incredible teacher at school, and one of those brilliant people who is focused on this child, and no matter what helps this child, they could recover from that. There's a possibility of that. But if it's a child who's nonverbal, has tantrums, is aggressive, has no social behavior, no eye contact, I don't care if the teacher is Albert Einstein, that teacher also has 20 other kids to deal with. That child on their own, with just the passage of time and a good school program, most likely it's not going to be enough.
Right.
So it's about what's enough, what you do with the passage of time. And ABA is about what you do with the passage of time. ABA is a massive amount of work. It is all the work that you put in during that passage of time that makes it possible for your child to outgrow or recover. But you don't just outgrow with doing nothing about it unless you are lucky enough to have a very minimal amount of ASD affecting you and you are coincidentally exposed to a brilliant teacher or some amazing program that you encounter without doing anything about it.
And,
Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question, and thank you. I wanted them to hear it from your professional mouth because I'm about, later in the next hour I'm going to spout off. But I also want to say that when my son was diagnosed, like a lot of people, I went on the hunt. I was like, I need to find answers.
Of course.
And I was looking underneath every single rock to say, what's happening. And I was talking to a parent last night, and I said, I made it my business to find out every single kid that was a teenager or older that was doing well and to find them and find their parents. And if they were speaking somewhere, my tuchus was there. And any way that I could get it there and to say, what did you do?
Right.
And I have yet, and now I've been covering autism, from some sort of a journalistic show perspective for 10 years now. And I have, in all the people that I have interviewed, I have yet to find a person who has a life where they have no disability who can say, oh, it just happened organically.
Right.
It just, they've done a significant amount of therapy and sometimes biomedical, but I have yet to find a single person who was like, I don't know, I just outgrew it. I just figured it out on my own.
Right.
There is always a parent and a team behind it that worked like dogs and used ABA or Temple Grandin still needs some accommodations.
Yeah.
But, Temple is very high functioning. But if you look at what her mother did, and we've interviewed her mother, but her mother and her aunt were like really proficient ABA therapists before they knew what ABA was.
Right.
Exactly some of the things that are being done with kids now, her mother and her aunt sat and did. So anyway.
And, so in general, just to kind of address the other side of this, most of the time, if you don't do things, not only will the individual not outgrow, but they get worse.
Right.
They don't get worse. The expectations and the expectations of life become more, and therefore things get worse. So in other words, as you become an adult or an older child, there are more expectations of you. And what normally typically happens is you, the individual who has been diagnosed, become frustrated, and then challenging behaviors start to happen. And with the more time that goes by, those challenging behaviors actually become more imprinted. So it's sort of like, if I spend 1 year, if I'm a 2-year-old and I'm tantruming every time I want something instead of using my words, it's easy, it's not that hard for a behavior analyst to modify that behavior, because it's easier to teach a 2 to 3-year-old, listen, your tantrum's not going to work, you need to use your words and then it'll work and we'll reward you. But if you're like, let's say, been doing that for 15 years, it takes a lot of effort and you're a lot harder to deal with every time you tantrum. So, behavior change is easier to make when you're younger, when a behavior hasn't become so imprinted. And so, not doing things just usually ends up not being the best. It ends up being worse.
Okay. I want to say we have Ireland in the house, and we want to say happy St. Paddy's Day to everybody. Bonnie wants to know how to nighttime potty train a 5-year-old that is already daytime potty trained. The problem that could happen with my son is that once he wakes up in the middle of the night, he will have a hard time falling back to sleep. My son talks but does not have conversational speech.
So when he wakes up, he has a hard time going back to sleep.
And she feels like that might be the problem. Like I don't know whether it's that he doesn't want to wake up because then when he wakes up to go to the potty, he has a hard time going back to sleep. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And there's two, potty training is important to do in consecutive steps and correctly. So I will give you a couple of things to think about, but I don't want to give you extreme guidelines because I don't want to say something that might ruin your progress that you've made already. But go back and read the Fox and Azrin full protocol because it does go into nighttime training as well. The thing about nighttime training is that you have to do a few different things. One is you have to stop giving liquids at around, let's assume your child is going to sleep around, how old is this child?
5.
5. So let's assume your child's going to sleep around 9 p.m. or so. You should really stop giving liquids at around 6. Like no more liquids at all. And make sure that you are allowing the child to use the toilet before they sleep. What you might be referring to in regards to waking up and not being able to go back to sleep again is that we always say if the child goes to bed at 9, you go to bed at, let's say, 10 or 11, go take your child to the bathroom one more time. Mm-hmm. And that's what you might be referring to. So if that's the case, don't do it. I mean, first of all, don't assume that your child won't go back to sleep. If you've actually done it, woken up your child, placed them on the toilet, let them go, and then you realize that, oh, every time I do this, my child wakes up and won't go back to sleep, then I understand. Yeah. But don't just make the conclusion, right? Test it out. So now if we know for a fact that your child, if you are able to wake up your child at, let's say, 11 before you sleep, do it if they go back to sleep. If they're not going to, then what I recommend is to have the child no drinking for about 3 to 4 hours prior to them sleeping. And then when they go to sleep, just let it be, but keep the night short. So start with like waking up early, so 5 o'clock or something, and see how short. The best way to do this, and it's hard, I know, for parents because it's so tough to figure out the length of time. But these days, you guys at least have cameras. Like, there's also a thing you can order which actually buzzes if the child wets. It's just something you put under their sheets. It's like looks like a heating pad. Put under the sheets. As soon as it receives any kind of humidity or wet, it will buzz and wake the child up, right? And it's a training. It's supposed to train the child to not urinate at all during the night. But if there's a way for you to figure out your child's baseline, in other words, how long can the child go without wetting? So in other words, if you stop drinking at like 5 or 6 and the child's in bed at 9, can he actually stay dry until about 5 in the morning? That's your goal. If you can do that, then your child waking up at 5, then we go on and teach the child to do some other activity to engage themselves so they're not coming to wake you up. But the bottom line is, we have to establish a baseline, even if it's just 9 p.m. till like 3, whatever it is, then we start growing that baseline and actually then helping the child stay dry longer and longer, right? And it's very possible. It's a habit for children to let go, right? They have to keep it for a long period of time. The other thing that helps, by the way, is, I don't know what your child's daytime schedule is. If your child is on an hourly schedule, it's too soon to do the nighttime. Okay. Your daytime schedule needs to have reached a point where your child is able to stay dry for a few hours, like let's say 3, and is able to actually go to the bathroom by themselves or tell you. If he's on a schedule where you need to take the child, he's not ready for nighttime. Okay. All right, a couple of things I just want to go back and address. So you said Fox and Azrin, because I know that's spelled a little bit different, and that, for people who don't know, that's sort of it's a potty training Bible for us, yeah. And there are lots of books about it. You can find it online, but it's spelled kind of weird, right? It's like... No, it's Fox and Azrin. Okay. Yeah. Also, there's a section on potty training, I believe, in IBT's website too. Institute for Behavior Training. I'd really recommend you go there. That's an awesome training. ibehavioraltraining.com. And then, for the waking up in the middle of the night, I know a lot of parents
have gotten those toilet lights where it lights up the bowl, so you don't have to turn the light on in the bathroom. The only thing that's lit up is where they're going to sit.
And those are awesome.
And you get a good color that they really like, and it's sort of space cool. And it helps to not wake them up, because the light is what wakes them up, and then they can't go back to sleep.
Right.
It's better for you too.
Definitely.
You're going to hit the toilet. And that's the thing that's lit up, because it's the thing that it should be, but it's very eye friendly, and then you can all go back to sleep afterwards. Okay, do we have time for one more question?
Sure.
Okay. Good morning. My 8.5-year-old son with autism is very bright, considered high functioning. He still has behaviors and tantrums, is fully potty trained, and can ask for all he needs. Can ask questions like who, why, where, can have short conversations, but the things he likes,
about the things he likes.
Excuse me, like speakers, movie credits, hip-hop music. My question is, can my son still have a chance to recover with intense ABA? I contacted CARD in Edison, New Jersey, and I'm waiting for a response to hopefully start services soon. He's a very smart boy, but like I said earlier, sometimes has tantrums and injurious behavior when frustrated or mad. He'll be 9 in June. And she says, I get sad thinking, even though he's got so much potential and skills, that he would not be able to recover. He's also hyper, and attention can be a problem. Please let me know your opinion, and thanks in advance. I would be so lost without this show. We're sending you a hug.
That's so nice of you, yeah. So what it's one of those things which I wish I knew more about your son, if I could do an evaluation or something, and then I could help you see the future a little bit more, but I don't, and this is not enough information for me to be able to say how far he'll go, right? But my recommendation to you is, I mean, it sounds like he's learned quite a lot, and that's great. It sounds like he's doing well. And I do recommend that you get him into an ABA program as soon as you possibly can, and that you do a lot of work, right? If you can, and this is one of the problems we hit when our kids are 8 or 9 or whatever, they're in school. And so our hours become extremely limited, and also funding sources generally won't fund comprehensive programs for kids over the age of 8. So, at best, your child will probably get something like 10, 15, maybe 20 hours of one-to-one therapy, which is going to be extremely helpful. What I recommend for you to do is a couple of things. One is, don't set a recovery as your goal. Every single year, try to set a goal which has to do with the things you want your son to learn that year. So here's what you can do today, okay? You don't have to wait for us. You can you can do 2 things, which is what I did specifically for parents. Get on Skills, and the website for that is skillsforautism.com, skillsforautism.com. Get on Skills. And when you're on Skills, do everything. Get on there, become a client, answer the assessment questions about your son. It'll help you identify exactly what he needs to learn. From there, you will look and determine exactly what you want to accomplish every year, right? This year, I would like him to, have longer conversations. I want his conversations to be directed at children. I want him to be able to read facial expression. You'll be shocked at the amount of choice you have on Skills. We're not talking, we're talking about, you can choose things like, I want him to tell jokes. I want him to be able to lie. It's everything and anything you want is on there. So, but you have to spend some time. And I suggest you set goals for yourself where you say, I'm going to do an hour on Skills every day. It'll take a week to answer the assessment, great. Then it'll take you, give yourself time, give yourself a month to acclimate. And Shannon has helped a lot of people acclimate to Skills. It's a big platform. It is big. It's like going into a supermarket for the first day and what are all these things? So give yourself time, because if you really learn Skills, you will benefit from it beyond your imagination. Now, and you're not going to do all of it. You're just going to help select the things, right? And then you're going to go on IBT, which is ibehavioraltraining.com, the Institute for Behavior Training. And there you will teach yourself the techniques. You will learn how to teach things. You will learn how to get rid of challenging behaviors. You will learn how to, what you do whenever he has a tantrum. You'll learn what to do to get his attention. You'll learn what to do to not allow him to injure anyone or himself. You'll you'll understand autism, and you'll understand what these behaviors are about, and you'll understand how to teach. So it's simple for him to understand. So do all of that, because this will keep you very engaged, and I promise you, every day you'll learn something new, every single day. Then you can work on teaching him, and hopefully by then a team of ABA experts have also joined you, and together you will now give him a lot of attention and support, and you'll make up for what even people who start at 3 years old, maybe they're not doing the right thing. And don't worry about time, don't worry about recovery, worry about what you can do now yourself, train yourself, and get a team of people to assist and support, and you work on it together. You know, don't assume that as soon as you get into a CARD program, you're going to have a whole bunch of people come and just take care of recovery. That's not how it works. It is all about your involvement. And I'm sorry, because I know as a parent, we're already overwhelmed, but you'll enjoy it. It's like kind of going to the gym. You don't want to do it at first, but once you get into it, you're like, I feel great. You will feel a lot better.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I talk to parents about all the time is that CARD did a study a few years ago to see what predicts the best outcomes.
Right.
And I get really excited about talking that because it wasn't, you know, minimized down to age, but the best outcomes come when there are 3 things that you do consistently. And one of them was give your child as many opportunities to learn as possible.
Right.
24/7.
Right.
You know, as many
Absolutely.
opportunities as you can. The second one was having an experienced BCBA in your case, which if you get in with Edison, New Jersey, that's going to help you to be able to do that because all CARD offices have experienced BCBAs. But the third one, and I said earlier when I shopped around and I was like, what is consistent with all these kids that are doing well, was parent involvement. If the parents learned it and followed through on it, it helped with the first one, which is having the many opportunities. And every parent that I saw who said, you know, we're going to do as much as we can, and the thing that I said was, I want to be able to look him in the eye when he's 18 and be able to say we did everything we could. Wherever that gets us, I'm going to love him like there's nobody's business and accept him wherever he is. But I want to be able to look at him and tell him we did it all. And if you do that, I can tell you, you will be thrilled with where you end up. I haven't met a single parent who at the end didn't say, you know what, we are fabulous, we're good. So that's, I think, hand in hand with what Dr. Grant-Pichet said. If you do those 3 things every day, you're going to be okay and your kiddo's going to be okay, and there's going to be tremendous growth.
Definitely.
All right, we need to let you go.
Yeah, but before I go, I just want to thank you, and I want to do a shout out to Charlie. Charlie, Shannon bought these for you.
No. These were gifts.
These were donated.
These were gifts, I have to say, from Imperial Toys, who we love.
They're awesome.
But can I show you something fun that we learned you can do with these chickens, because we've been playing with them. And Charlie was here, our fabulous Beyond intern. Intern doesn't cover it when we were doing the toys, so I had to send these to Charlie. But we discovered that when you lock their legs, this is what happens when you work at Autism Live. You discover that they balance each other. So please take the chickens home to Charlie, because we miss Charlie. But Imperial Toys sent these over to us because they knew we would be very happy with them. So Charlie, they have to go home and live with you. You can name them and let us know. All right, we are going to take a break, and then we got a little bit of time before it's time for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. But don't forget that we're going to have Karen Nohelty on that hour, and we're also going to have Dr. Kerry Magro. But stay tuned. First, look at this. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs, like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro Business Enterprises. And the items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, you know, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. We're here doing allergy-free cooking, and I brought my sister with me today.
Jamie Davis, thanks for having me.
A lot of people are asking about a allergy-free breakfast, and breakfast can be full of crap.
But it's full of
cereal.
crap, and it's hard to do. We don't have time in the morning. We're in a hurry.
We're going completely nut-free. The recipe is not
personality. We can't do anything about.
Yeah, can't do anything about that. So we're going to start off first with. I'm using sorghum and brown rice flour. I find the texture good, and I've added some flaxseed meal. We talked about that last time, flaxseed meal for poop. Almost every one of our kids has a poop issue. What's next on the recipe is the quinoa flakes, baking powder, cinnamon, and the xanthan gum. It brings the glutinous texture back into the flour, and often what happens with these recipes is they can fall apart. This one holds up nicely. I like it. For the folks that are egg-free, we have a ton of egg replacers. One of those can be the arrowroot starch or bringing back some additional flax seeds. So there's a lot of options to go eggless, but we're going to go egg full in this one. For sweetener, I use the maple syrup. I stay away from refined sugar. What I'm adding now is the coconut milk, maple syrup, and a little bit of the coconut oil. And we're going to add in the raisins, craisins, and chocolate chips at the end. I find that chocolate chips can coax people to eat some really amazing things. When we started, Jeff had 42 food allergies, so we had to get creative in how we cooked. So nuts were a big, big issue. What I like now is that he can tolerate so many more things after start doing this diet. So let me show you how you can deal with this sticky stuff here. You get your fingers really wet, and you can push it down. So my oven has been preheated. It's at 350 degrees. So we're gonna just throw this in. Like I said, I like it around 23 minutes, and the magic oven says, I'm done. Looks like, don't you love magic ovens? They're awesome. There we go, pops right out. The texture of these, and it's so pretty, it looks almost like a big chocolate chip cookie, but you actually made it healthy. But you can be my guinea pig. Tell me what you think.
It looks really good.
Doesn't it? So the textures and the colors in there are just beautiful. So the raisins are for you, the chocolate chips are for your kid.
I can't believe it's gluten-free.
I know, right? It doesn't taste like, you know, crap. We're wrapping up another cooking show. If you have feedback, you can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. We're, of course, on Facebook. You could go to facebook.com/autismlive. And, of course, Talkin' Now has thousands of recipes. Join me there, and we can cook some more later on. So thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Thank you so much for being with us. We did need to let Dr. Grant-Pichet go a little bit early, but we are not doing a live show tomorrow. There's a couple of things I have to tell you about. First of all, I'm so excited because my son, who is in high school now, he's on a competitive robotics team. And so for the next 2 days, I'm going to be at one of his competitions, and I'm so happy and proud. I think I've told the story before that on the day that he was diagnosed, the developmental pediatrician, I asked her about what therapy we should do, and I said, what about that AB whatever therapy, you know, the one that helps them to talk? And she said, oh, you mean ABA. And she looked at me with her very experienced, expert, you know, eye thing and said, oh, promise me you won't do that with this baby. And I said, why? And she said, well, because I said, I hear that they teach them to talk. And she said, oh, yeah, they can do that, but it's very robotic. They'll just teach them very rote phrases. He'll talk like a robot. And that horrified me. And so we didn't do ABA it took us 6 months from that point to get to the point where we learned that that was not the case with quality ABA. And I always mourn those 6 months because I listened to the expert, right? And she didn't know. And she thought she knew. It wasn't out of malice. There are times when I get really angry at her, but she thought she knew. But one of the things that I say when I speak and go places is, we went and did high intensity quality ABA with my son, and my son did not turn into a robot, but he builds them. That's what I say. So, and I enjoy that. But anyway, so I'm going to be away at a robotics tournament. So tomorrow we will not be able to do our mindful moment. So because we have a couple of minutes here now, normally we do that on Thursday, I thought, hey, let's do that here. But I do want to say that we will be back next Wednesday and Thursday, and then we will be into April. April 1st will arrive, and then Autism Live is switching our format. We are now going to be on Monday through Friday from 10 to 11 Pacific time. That is going to be our new format. And of course, you'll still be able to find us on Facebook and on YouTube, and you'll be able to find us later after the fact on YouTube and on iTunes and all those wonderful places. But we are going to a 5-day-a-week format, 1 hour a day. We will not necessarily be live all of those hours, but we will be live a lot of that time and be giving you the quality content that we've given you, and I think improving upon it. So we're very, very excited about that, but you will see some shifts in the schedule, obviously, because that's what will need to happen. So be looking for that. We're very excited about the new format. We think that based on the things that our audience has said, one of the things that makes me the happiest in the world is when I'm out and about, whether it's at an autism event or not. The other day, I took my son to see a wonderful play, a musical that a friend of mine had directed, and we were at this beautiful theater, and a woman walked up to me in the lobby, and she was like, oh my goodness, are you Shannon from Autism Live? And I said, yes. And she's like, oh, I've been watching your show forever, right? I love getting an opportunity to meet people that I feel like I'm friends with but haven't met. You know what I mean? But what a lot of people will say to me, they'll sort of hang their head and they'll go, I used to watch your show a lot. I watched all the time. But I don't get to watch it very much anymore because I'm busy doing all the things that you talked about on the show. I don't feel a bit bad about that. Not even a little. The whole point of this show is to give you things to go run and do. And you can't, my point in saying all of this is there are very few people who have 2 hours in the day to sit and watch, right? We think that an hour is much more consumable, and we're having it at a set time so that it's not like, which day is it? Monday through Friday. From 10 to 11 Pacific time, you'll know that we're there, and then look for us in the place that we podcast. Our website is ready for it. YouTube is ready for us. Facebook is ready for us. The time has come, right? So you'll still be able to find us. We're actually going to give you an hour more content a week, so no one should be crying. But we're going to get you, those of you who watch us live, we're going to get you off earlier so that you can go and do all the things that we talk about here, right? And never apologize to me for that. If you are taking what we have offered here and you're finding ways to use it, then I'm thrilled, right? Okay, but mindfulness moment for the week. So a lot of times we'll talk about things and it's really for caregivers. But whenever we can, I like to talk about how do we get our kiddos to participate with us, because part of what we're doing is modeling that mindfulness and meditation mode, right? But it's a tool that we're using to help ourselves to have less stress. Why wouldn't we want to share that tool with the person that we love on the autism spectrum, no matter what their age is, no matter what their ability is? So the thing that I want to talk about today, so many of you write in and go, yeah, the meditation piece is hard for me. And I think it's like any other muscle. You know, when you begin to work out with a muscle, it puts a little strain on the muscle. You don't want to do too much too soon. And as Dr. Grandpichet was just saying, you know, it doesn't feel like something you want to go do, but once you do it and you see the benefits of it, then you want to do more of it. So today is for those of us who struggle with the whole meditation thing. You know, closing your eyes and freeing your brain of all thought it's a hard thing to do for a lot of people, right? And especially if you've got a lot of things you're working on and that thing that they call monkey brain, where your brain just won't stop. So this is a simple exercise in mindfulness that is meditative in its core, but not purely meditative, right? Because we're not going to close our eyes. We're going to sit comfortably and we're going to feel, I'm putting my feet flat on the floor because they weren't before. We're going to take our hands and put them either on our thighs, flat on our thighs, or on the desktop, right? If we're sitting with one of our kiddos, we can sit crisscross applesauce, right? With the legs folded. Or if that's not good for them, their legs could be out. We could even lay down on a mat, depending on what a child wants to do or a teenager wants to do, right? Or a young adult, right? But we want to be able to see things. So if you're laying down, make sure that you still have things within your vision, because we're going to list things. And we're going to start when we're teaching this to somebody who's on the autism spectrum, especially if they're younger. If they can vocalize, we're going to have them vocalize. If not, we're going to vocalize it for them. So we would start by looking around the room and labeling everything. And you're going to say, but my 2-year-old doesn't know the label for things. But if we point to it and we can touch it, then that helps as well. Now, some of the things are out of your view. So I just touched our fabulous, don't you love this? Our wonderful guest, Gregory Chabola, made this for us. So I might touch this and I can go Autism Live, right? And I can touch this and I can say iPad. And I can touch this and say iPad. I can touch this and say phone. I can touch this and say pen. I can touch this and say cup, right? I touch this and I say glasses. And we just keep touching and listing, right? And that's all that we need to do today. And we do it for a couple of different minutes. And if we're sitting quietly and we're touching these things and we're labeling them out loud, and that's all we're doing, and we're doing it in a nice pace, but not rushed, right? Then we'll find that it's the beginning of letting go of stress. Now, the second step, maybe we do this today, and we can take the child's hand. We go Autism Live. We do phone, iPad, cup, right? It's just taking a moment. Then, if a child is older, we can introduce the idea of thinking something, but not saying it out loud, right? So, you know, after we've done this, maybe for several days or even a week where we've touched and said Autism Live, now we're going to tell them, okay, we're going to think it in our brain, but we're not going to say it. We put our hand on it, and I think to myself, Autism Live. And I put my hand on it and I think phone, right? That becomes a way of teaching them, okay, we're thinking it in our brain. And then the next step would be just to sit quietly, hands flat, right? And be looking around and breathing, and maybe teaching that we do an inhale and a slow exhale for everything that we see, and that we just notice it. We're not touching it anymore, but we look at it in our brain, we think camera, iPad, cup, to notice those things. Because what that does is, over a period of time, is it calls us into this moment, into a moment of awareness. These are the things that are around me. And as we progress with this, then the next thing that we would do is start talking in our head and noticing things that maybe you can't label as easily. I mean, you can say light, right? And notice where the light is coming from, and notice smells and other sensory things that come into play, so that we can get to a point where we can just settle ourselves and for a moment become mindful of our surroundings. So that's that progression, right? And you can start this with people of all abilities, of all ages, right? And build up to wherever you can get to. But honestly, when people are having anxiety, one of the first things that they're taught to do is to lay their hands and feet flat and notice what's around them. But if you aren't somebody who's been taught to even do that, that's a hard thing to do. So this is a way that you can work your way up and shape that behavior of becoming mindful in the moment, of noticing what's happening around you. And the bigger scope of that is that when you're present and totally present, one of the things, if you have the ability to get present in this moment, it's because nothing bad is happening, right? When something really bad is happening, you know, you don't have time for that. You are reactive in doing something. When people are part of a fire, for instance, they are reacting in the moment, right? So if you have the time and the ability to stop for a second and go, you know, chair, camera, light, it's because nothing bad is actually happening in that moment. That's really when you're in the present and you can breathe and notice that, oh, right now I'm okay, because so much of anxiety is being in the past or in the future. And if we can get present, then we can really have an opportunity to let our body breathe and relax and have a sense of well-being, which, man, there's just nothing better than having a sense of well-being. Even if it's fleeting, it's a powerful, powerful thing. So I encourage you all to find an opportunity to be mindful and to find an opportunity to be mindful with the person you love on the autism spectrum. All right, we are out of time. We are going to now take a break, and then we are going to be back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Don't forget that our special guest today, Karen Nohelty, is going to be talking with us about some research we're going to do in the news. And we have the fabulous Dr. Kerry Magro. He's going to be talking about his new children's book that's coming out in just a week. So stick with us.
Hard times lead to good choices. Many times you're going to find out that change is coming and it's not something that you like to see. Things sometimes just don't work. Sometimes you have to put your child in a new school. Sometimes you have to put them in a different classroom. Often you'll see this with perhaps special education versus regular education, or everyone's favorite, puberty. All bets are off then. However, these things happen when they need to happen. So making that hard choice is super, super scary. But when you open those doors to look at things that maybe you've never dreamed you would have to look at, you're going to find help that you never expected. There are a lot of people out there dealing with the same things that you are dealing with, and there is a level of help that you never even knew existed. So don't be afraid when it's time to look at the scary problems that you're having. When those things come up, when the aggression increases, when things are falling apart at home, when you're getting the calls from the schools, don't be afraid. Reach out. Find out what you need to do. You might need to look at new schools, new housing. You might need to access new levels of service. But I am telling you, you're going to see amazing things. There are children that, as they grow, do things with the help of others, very specialized support, that you never thought they could do. So once you do that and you meet the child where he or she is and you give them what they need, everybody can do better, and you're going to see amazing progress.
Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself sometimes, why does my child have meltdowns? Well, the difference between tantrums and meltdowns, they're a part of typical development, but meltdowns are when things get a little bit more out of control, when even the child isn't sure what's entirely wrong. Generally with a meltdown, there's an environmental component. There's something else going on outside the child that's making the tantrum worse. It's really important that we start to be detectives and take notes and look around at the environment and start to figure out what are the things that happen every time your child has a meltdown. And lastly, it's important to get help. You really can't face these kinds of things effectively, completely on your own. Tantrums, they're a part of typical development, but don't accept meltdowns as something that just happens. Make sure you get help and support. You might be asking yourself if your child has autism.
Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
I'm Shannon Penrod.
And we're laughing because we're laughing about Shannon's haircut adventure, which
Yes.
you see she's gotten a haircut possibly.
Yes.
But the other night on Facebook she posted it and it was a horn.
It was a horn. And if you're not friends with me on Facebook, you know you should be, because I don't post that often, but when I do, I try to.
You're hilarious.
Well, you know, and so I was just saying to Nancy, there is a whole story that I didn't even tell on Facebook, but you know, I don't spend a lot of money to get my hair cut because it's a pixie cut, and I have found that, you know, you go someplace and pay $80 and it's the same, you get super cuts
same
for
pixie
this
cut,
haircut,
right.
whatever. And I have a picture that I show people of me. I'm not showing them a picture of Jennifer Aniston.
Right.
I'm just saying, you know, my hair is capable of doing this.
This is the way I like it.
This is the way I like it. And but it's a picture of me. It's 5 years old, but it's a picture of me. And but we had gone to Supercuts. You know, we moved and we're in a new neighborhood. We don't know where to go, but we went to this Supercuts that we'd never been to before, and they said 40-minute wait. And we noticed that there was a hair salon just like 4 doors down. And I said, come on, let's go look. And my son was like, no, it's too hipster. I don't want to go there, because he needed to get his hair cut too. And they had these pictures of people with very edgy hair in the front. And I was like, come on, let's be a little hipster. Let's do it. He didn't want to do it, but we went in, and this guy came over, and, you know, I just had this impression that he was going to be fabulous at cutting hair.
Because he had an accent.
He had an accent, and he had that flair, and he was just, you know, and he, you know, I mean, he just had all the things that I was like, yes, this is going to be a great haircut, right? And he kind of gestured and said, you know, who's getting their hair cut? And I said, we're both. And he said, okay, but who's going to be first? And I said, me, because I was so excited. And he took me over, and I took out my phone, and I showed the picture of me, and I just started talking as only I can do. And I said, okay, now, you know, this is my hair, this is me, and I like it short, like really short, like Katy Perry short, okay? Don't be afraid, make it short. And, but, you know, my hair is very curly, so if it's long on the sides, I'll look like a crazy person.
And you
like
mentioned helmet.
And I said, but don't turn it into a helmet.
Right.
I don't want a helmet, right? So it needs to be able to be messed up a little bit and stand up a little bit. And he's all smiling and nodding through the whole thing. And then and we're like ready, and I've got the cape on and everything. And he goes and picks up a pair of those razor cutters.
Right.
And then he started lunging at me. And he's like, and cutting my hair from 3 feet away by, like, you know, and I was like, oh, I've never had my hair cut like this before. I'm afraid I'm going to be stabbed in the eye, right? But he's just, you know, and just like no plan.
Right.
But then he would stop everything, and then he would comb my hair so hard that I still have ridges in my head. and I was like, what is happening? And I was looking at it, but here's the sad thing, that in my head, I'm like, one of 3 things is going on here. One, this man is brilliant, and I've never had a haircut this good before, because I've never had my hair cut this way, but maybe he's the one who actually knows how to cut my hair. So I'm reserving judgment. It actually
looks great now.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, I said, you know, maybe it's that he's brilliant, and that I don't know how to cut hair, and all my life it has not been cut right, because lunging at it like this with razors is the way. So let's reserve judgment. Or number 2, I am being punked, and Ashton Kutcher is going to jump out from behind one of the doors at any moment. And I thought, well, you know, if that's what it is, I will laugh hysterically, and it'll be good publicity for Autism Live, right? So, okay, I'm up for that too. Or 3, this guy is crazy, does not have his license, and I've stepped into something weird and it's going to be the worst haircut of my life, in which case I'm going to get a good story out of it.
Right.
Right? So,
You
know,
couldn't
I was
lose.
like, whatever. And then he started sculpting it into this horn. It can only be described as a hair horn. And I was sitting there in the chair and he kept going, you like? And I was like, well, it's different. And it was this horn.
It did look like a horn. Your Facebook picture.
He had it
definitely
all
looked like a horn.
brushed forward, so I looked like Caesar.
Right. Caesar with a horn.
Caesar with a horn. And I was trying so hard not to laugh. And Jem was waiting, but another guy took Jem. And so I finished way before, and I'm taking pictures of it and posting on Facebook. And Jem finishes in the chair, and he looks like a male model. And Jem, so we leave, we pay, and we leave. And I tipped well. But we get outside on the sidewalk, and I turn to Jem, and he's looking, and he's trying really hard not to laugh. And I said, I have a horn. And he said, Mom, you have a horn. Did you ask for that? And I said, what? No, of course I didn't ask for a horn.
So how did you fix it?
Well, I thought, I want to go home and wash it and put product in it to see what can be done. And you guys, it's just a really bad haircut. It's because it's razor cut. It's not. There's nothing about it that's even, and there's stuff on one side in the back that's longer than the other. And you'll see that it I have it cemented down almost into a helmet because that's the only thing I can do, because you can't even just mess it up. You've seen my hair before.
Yes.
It's been, short enough where I could just mess it up and go, you can't.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
It doesn't work. I look like a lunatic. And in fact, what I said was, I think what he heard was Katy Perry crazy helmet and horn somewhere. He misheard and heard horn. So anyway, go to my Facebook and you can see the whole thing. But
it's hilarious. You're hilarious.
Well, and it will grow back. I mean, here's the thing. We have laughed so hard as a family and with my friends, and we have laughed so hard and so long about it that it was so worth it. If I had known that getting a bad haircut would bring that much joy, I might just continue to get bad haircut. Maybe that's the reason why some of the comedians that I love had such bad hair.
Yeah.
Because it was funny.
Right.
Like Phyllis Diller, I loved Phyllis Diller.
Right.
And
She
Phyllis
had bad
Diller
hair.
had crazy hair.
Yeah, she did.
So there you go. Okay.
So we've got to get Karen Nohelty on the line.
Yes, we
so
do.
we need
Karen's
to take
good
a
one.
really quick break to get her on the line.
You've got her on the line?
Oh, we do?
Is the Skype working enough for phone, or do I need to call her? All right, then we're just going to go right over to Karen Nohelty. Karen, I'm so sorry for making you wait. And so, Karen, let's talk a little bit about, because you've been on the show before, but for people who are new and watching, tell them what you do, and then talk a little bit about what you're going to talk about.
Research and Development Manager at CARD. So I support, run, and manage research projects.
Wonderful.
And my other role, I also supervise clients here at CARD as well. I have a couple kids on my caseload.
Which is a fabulous thing. And Karen, you're going to be talking with us about some research today that I think is really fantastic. Talk to us.
Sure. So I have information from 2 great research studies to share with you. The first one is all about the language use, because a lot of families speak a different language at home from English. So this study is by Natalie Lim and Marjorie Charlup, and it's called Effects of English versus Heritage Language on Play in Bilingual Exposed Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder. So autism occurs in all cultures, it's indiscriminate, but unfortunately most of the research is done on English speakers, Caucasian individuals. But that's just not the reality of what most kids are living in their homes. So a lot of families have to make a choice of what language to speak with their children, and a lot of professionals recommend using English exclusively. But this really isn't supported by the research. Research shows that bilingual children and monolingual children with autism really don't have a difference in their language delays. And there can even be some benefits for bilingual children. So this current study really looked at instructional language use. So instructing in either the home language or in English for these children. And they took 4 boys with the diagnosis of autism who had a home language of either Spanish and Korean, and they assessed play skills. And during these play sessions, sessions were randomly rotated between either English or their home language. And during those sessions, the experimenter either gave a play instruction, a comment, or some sort of praise statement every 30 seconds in that target language for that session. And then what they did is they tracked the play skills that the kids engaged in. You know, how much did they play appropriately with toys? How much did they engage and play with others? And before the instruction started, the children didn't display any of those play behaviors that they were tracking. And after instruction in both language sessions, kids learned the play skills. And the interesting thing was that the kids displayed more play skills in their home language than in the sessions that were done in English. So my takeaway from this study is speak to your child in your home language if you speak a language other than English at home, and even see if you can have some instruction or have some of therapy sessions done in your home language as much as possible.
Important study because we really haven't looked at this in a, I certainly hadn't looked at this in a big way, but there are more and more kiddos that English is not their home language that are getting
that are bilingual.
And parents have been asking this question for a long time, though, because as you said, Karen, for so long, ABA providers were saying that the sessions needed to happen in English. I suspect probably because there were more English-speaking therapists.
Right.
But what a wonderful thing to know that they can learn at either way, right? So that shows that the learning in English is effective, but if it is more effective in the home language, then that gives us a place to shoot for.
Right.
Which is truly wonderful. I'm so excited that we're looking at this. And so then what else did you want to talk with us about, Karen?
Sure. So the second article I have is on a little lighter topic. Some researchers, Wesley Dotson and his colleagues, actually studied the TV show Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. And if you've never heard of this show, it's an educational young children's programming show that's kind of based on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. So this article is called Evaluating the Ability of the PBS Children's Show Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood to Teach Skills to 2 Young Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder. And what they were really focusing on this study is video modeling. And that's a strategy that has a lot of research behind it. And basically, you show a kid a video of someone engaging in a skill to try and teach them that skill. So the question is, can a high-quality kids TV show teach skills by video modeling, basically? So in this study, they took 2 5-year-old children with autism spectrum disorder, and they looked specifically at 2 skills that were each linked to a Daniel Tiger episode. So there was one episode about trying new foods, and there was a second episode about stopping play when you're directed to do so. And before they showed the kids these videos, engagement in both of these skills was very low, almost 0. And for both kids, after showing both of these episodes, the skills really increased, and they were able to master these skills just by watching these videos. And while watching these videos, there was an adult present, but the adult wasn't prompting them, wasn't supporting them, wasn't engaging with them during the videos. They were just, responding if the child initiated with them. So this is really exciting to see that these episodes were able to teach these kids some skills. And one of the kids did need some support to attend and pay attention to the TV show, which is to be expected. So my takeaway here is, there are always times as a parent, I'm sure, you're going to put TV on for your kids. So think about the TV show that you're putting on. Daniel Tiger has been shown in this study, at least for these 2 episodes, to actually teach kids skills. So if you can take the TV time your kid is engaging in to make it educational, that's really exciting.
So the takeaway is, I'm sorry, Karen, the takeaway is showing your child specifically Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood?
Yes, and this is just one study just about Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. There isn't research, as far as I know, on other TV shows that are educational.
But you were starting to say that there's one asterisk.
Yes, so the American Academy of Pediatrics does make recommendations regarding screen time, and they do say for 2 to 5-year-olds, you should limit that screen time to an hour a day of high-quality programming.
There we go.
And they do also say screen time shouldn't be alone time. You should be engaging with your child when they're on TV and on screens.
Okay. Yeah, and I just want to say, we love PBS, but Daniel Tiger is a spinoff from Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, which was so educational.
Yes, and because Daniel Tiger was one of the puppets that Mr. Rogers voiced.
Oh, really?
Yes, and that the people at PBS who decided to do this spinoff really have, I think, hit it out of the park in terms of taking what Fred Rogers, his philosophy of education and building children up and building up their spirit is included in Daniel Tiger. So I would caution parents and say that Daniel Tiger is not indicative of all children's programming, which is honestly what you were saying, Karen. I'm just saying it a little less nicely. Like they're not, that's not even apples and oranges. It's like, you know, a really good race car compared to, you know, some cardboard boxes is what we're talking about. This is high quality television. But very exciting to know that that video modeling, and this is a wake-up call for all of us who have anything to do with television, that this is an opportunity for us to make some better programming for children, to be able to help them to learn in addition to other therapies, including a really good quality ABA program. Well, Karen, this is fabulous, and we always enjoy having you with us, and we want to thank you and your team for being a part of our show on a monthly basis to help us to be able to tear apart some of the research and hone it down to what we really need to walk away with.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Bye, Karen.
Bye.
Okay, wonderful. And so we're going to take a break.
Yes, and when we come back, are we going to have Kerry Magro with us?
Dr.
Kerry Magro. I saw he posted on Facebook. Yeah.
I'm so excited
He's
to talk
got
to
his
him about
PhD
that.
now.
PhD.
And
So
he's going to
there we
be
go.
talking to us about a new children's book he has,
Yes,
correct?
there we go. Plus, we're going to talk about the dissertation and what it was like defending the dissertation, and I want to know what the dissertation was in. I don't know about you. Inquiring minds want to know. All right, so we're going to be back. Thank you, Karen. Yes, you can.
Yes, thank you, Karen.
Thank you. We're going to be back with Kerry Magro in just a moment. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts. We hear questions all the time, and we want to give you the answers that help make your journey in autism easier and more navigatable. Less than a year ago, we interviewed the top 100 doctors in the United States working with children on the spectrum, and we asked them a question in the cloak of secrecy. What are the top 3 mistakes parents living with autism do? Number 1, and the one that makes me laugh the most, is when they use their physician as a marriage and family therapist. 1, the doctors told me it made them uncomfortable, and 2, they were highly unqualified to provide that type of advice. So the night before your physician appointment with your MAPS doctor, get together with your spouse, significant other, and write out the list of the targets and the agenda that you want to cover at the physician's appointment. Get in sync. Then you'll be definitely spending less time and not making that doctor so uncomfortable. Second thing that was the most common mistakes parents living with autism make is they want to go too fast. And really, you want to pace yourself in the autism journey. We all know that we want to get our kid to be the best they can be and hopefully recover from autism. And what a lot of the doctors have told me is that you want to really pace yourself. 1, to let the labs be your guide. And 2, work with your physician on the prioritization and the delivery of the different medical interventions. The third most common mistake they felt families made was giving up too soon. And what you need to know is they're invested. They're looking at wanting to get the best from your child. But I tell you that when I got that and consolidated the 100 interviews with these physicians, most of the doctors who brought that up had tears in their eyes. They want you to know that they're in the fight with you, and they want you to know that hope is really real. It may take hard work and it may take time, but to not give up and to stay in the game. So let Talk help you. We'll have some more Talk of Facts for you in the future, real questions and real answers for the autism journey.
Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself, why does my child stim? Well, first of all, let's talk about what stimming is. Stimming is a slang term for self-stimulatory behavior, which is kind of a misnomer anyway, because a lot of the times when our children engage in these kinds of behaviors, they're not to stimulate themselves. Sometimes they're to soothe themselves. So first of all, we want to get rid of the notion that it's to stimulate themselves. But they do these behaviors because there's something about it that feels good. And that's the main thing that we need to know as parents. It's not some random behavior. There's something about it that's giving the child a paycheck. And once we get an idea of what that might be, we need to find a behavior that can take that behavior's place and start to reinforce that. We want to pick something that's more socially acceptable. So if, for instance, the child is doing a lot of hand flapping because they like seeing their blurred fingers, then we can find something else for them to focus on, maybe a toy that does blurred colors, so for a period of time they'll focus on that. The main thing to remember, though, is that there is a reason for these behaviors. There's something about it that feels good to the child. And once we know that, we can begin to change it. There's a phrase that's being used in the autism community called stimming. Talk to us a little bit about what your degree is in.
City planning or urban planning.
I got it from Cal State Northbridge with a degree in cinema and television arts with an emphasis in screenwriting.
And what are you interested in, Eli?
A video game internship.
Computer programming.
I'm hoping to combine entertainment and travel, my two passions.
Ooh, what kind of jobs have you worked?
Bakery inventory.
Okay, inventory.
Talk about your volunteer job.
I was going to help the soldiers.
You volunteered to help the soldiers?
Yes. I interned in the national parks in the Santa Monica Mountains, which is very urban area. So I worked with the problems of how it's impacting the surrounding community, like the flow of traffic and the flow of people and what they could do to plan in the parking.
I've been to China. I've been all around Europe. I've been to Thailand, Japan, Australia.
You can create an app? That's impressive. Really cool thing. Can you teach other people how to make an app? If you have a choice between working or not working,
Working.
You like working.
Yes.
Why? What do you like about working?
It is fun.
I would work.
Yeah? You would choose work? Why?
Because I want to get paid and enjoy it, and want to make sure I have enough money so I can save it.
Why do you need to have a full-time job? I mean, it's kind of like a duh thing, right?
No, obviously, so I can support myself
Right.
and hopefully a family down the line, but at least at first, myself.
I'm very dependable and always reliable and get to my job on time.
What excites you about working a job or being an intern?
Learning new skills.
Yeah. What has it meant to you having this job and having the stability of a job that you've had for multiple years?
It's meant the world because I'm able to do almost everything I wanted to do because of that job.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And now, as promised, we have joining us Dr. Kerry Magro, who just recently became a PhD, and we're going to hear all about that. Kerry is a professional speaker and oh so much more. And we're here to talk to him about his new degree as well as his new children's book. Welcome to the show, Kerry.
Oh, so glad to be on. It's been a pleasure to be on over the years, and I can't thank you enough for having me again today.
Well, we're thrilled, and I was just saying to Kerry before we went live that, Kerry has been a guest on this show many times. I love it every time Kerry is on the show because he's an amazing speaker and always fills us with inspiration. But we're always proud of Kerry and his accomplishments and the things that he does. But yesterday you did something really, truly momentous, Kerry. Do you want to talk about that first?
Sure. So yesterday was my dissertation defense, and I passed. So I am officially Dr. Kerry Magro, at NJC, New Jersey State University. So it kind of blew me away, and I'm still kind of in shock. I don't believe it. Yeah. So
What is your degree in, Kerry?
So it's in educational technology leadership. So I wanted to do something on the university level in terms of teaching. And there was something that struck out to me about educational technology. So I found New Jersey State University, and I've been there for the past 3 years. And I defended my dissertation yesterday, and now I'll be walking in May, and I'm officially a doctor.
Congratulations.
That's really amazing.
Thank you.
And so you've been an amazing international speaker, and people love to hear you talk. Now with this new PhD, what's the plan here, Dr. Magro? Where are you going from here, do you think?
Well, with April being World Autism Month, I'm going to be speaking throughout the month. But once May comes and I actually graduate, I'm going to be focused on looking for a adjunct professorship at a university to continue my work as a public speaker, but also teaching young and bright minds about our community, our special needs community. So that's kind of the plan as of right now, and I'm so excited to kind of just graduate and then just get ready to look for universities in the summer.
Really remarkable.
Sounds great.
Okay, so Kerry, you have got a new children's book that's coming out, because in all your spare time, you had time. I honestly,
I know we're all feeling like slackers around here.
I know, totally. So you found time to write a children's book. So it's coming out, and in just a couple of days. Talk to us a little bit about I Will Light It Up Blue.
So I've written a few books now, and I have always had a passion in the back of my mind to write a children's book. So about 2 years ago, I started writing I Will Light It Up Blue, which is actually based on the Global Autism Awareness Initiative, Light It Up Blue, which happens on April 2nd during World Autism Awareness Day, where people light their houses up blue and they wear blue to start a conversation about autism. And I've been participating in that initiative since it started. And I decided when I was thinking about writing a children's book that being able to go into the school systems and educate our younger children about autism in a kind of a way that would be interested to them, just in terms of this initiative that's pretty popular and many people know about, I thought it was a no-brainer. So I wrote the book I Will Light It Up Blue, and it kind of just has already we were #1 on an Amazon bestseller list for pre-orders. So it's kind of just been very amazing to see the feedback we've received so far, and to get ready for April and to get the opportunity to go into schools and read the book as well.
So the book is available. No, you go ahead, Nancy.
The focus of the book is to be proud about autism, or what is the focus in terms of I Will Light It Up Blue?
Sure. So the focus is on actually 2 children on the autism spectrum, with one being on the high functioning end, one being on the low functioning end, and how they come about finding out about this initiative called Light It Up Blue. And it's really meant for self-advocates to feel empowered by their autism diagnosis, and then also to advocate for themselves and self-advocate for themselves. Not to give any spoilers away, but there is a sense of empowerment once they learn about Light It Up Blue and start talking in their own schools based on this initiative about their autism diagnosis, to educate their peers and also their teachers about autism and what it means for them specifically to be on the autism spectrum.
Okay. Wonderful. And so the book is available now for pre-order, but it officially launches on the 26th. So you mentioned that we can get it via Amazon, and that's probably the easiest way to get it, but you can also get it, it's put out by Mascot Books, so we can go to mascotbooks.com and look for I Will Light It Up Blue. And we want to encourage people, you know, it's, I love Light It Up Blue. I know that it's sometimes, you know, there are people who don't embrace it, and if you don't, you don't, and that's fine. Everybody's choice is everybody's choice.
Right.
But I have found that every year that we have participated in I Will Light It Up Blue, I can point to at least one conversation, if not 10, that happens on that day that would not have happened if it weren't for that blue.
Right.
That people in my neighborhood have come up to me and said, what is the deal with why do you have Hanukkah lights on, on April 2nd, right? Even one year, my landlord was given a fine because we had, they said we had Christmas lights up after the fact because we lit them up on April 2nd, and they were like, oh, you have your Christmas lights up and that is not allowed past, and so they gave a $50 fine to my landlord, and my landlord called me and said, what are you doing? And I said, I beg your pardon. That is part of an autism awareness initiative, and I'm happy to go before the board.
Did you get out of the fine?
They absolutely got out of the fine, and it created a conversation among everyone about why that was appropriate.
It's a great way to create a conversation.
You know, and I mean, you know, conflict doesn't mean that good things don't happen. Right? So I love Light It Up Blue. I love seeing the sea of blue. I love seeing people supporting our kids on that day. It makes me super happy. But what I love, Kerry, about what you've done is that often the littlest kids don't know what's happening with Light It Up Blue. And your book gives them an opportunity to not only understand it, but then participate from that place of understanding.
Yeah, and that was truly important to me because we often talk in our autism community about early intervention is the key. But when it comes to actually educating younger children about autism, it can be very challenging for some educators to really grasp the concept of just teaching them a little bit about autism. So I wanted to also give this book as an opportunity to have educators read it to their students to educate about autism. And the book is really meant, it's meant for everyone, but the age ranges that we're really going to be focused on are 3 to 10. And after speaking at a few preschools over the years, during the month of April for World Autism Month, I kind of saw this book as also another opportunity to do readings in the school to educate about autism. So really, they came from the early intervention is the key kind of message, and trying to educate others. Because if we get an early intervention for people who are non-disabled to learn a little bit more about the autism community, hopefully they'll be accepting of autism as they grow up.
Yes, and who better than the youngest generation to do that? We've already seen the inroads that Julia has made on Sesame Street, which is amazing. I love when people talk about that this generation of kids that have had Julia on Sesame Street will someday be the people who are hiring. And they will hire in a different way than people who don't have this awareness. So you're adding to the fire, Kerry, which is wonderful. So again, the book is I Will Light It Up Blue. You can get it on Amazon or Mascot Books, and make sure that you do your pre-order and get it before the 2nd, which is World Autism Awareness Day. Now, Kerry, we also have to talk about the fact that one of the things I love about you is that you are such a great role model, and you have managed throughout your time as an adult to figure out already at such a young age how to give back. And you felt that it was important enough that you started an organization and that you do scholarships. So talk about KFM and your scholarships. Because it's just, we're only like 2 years away and my son's going to be applying for one of those.
So KFM Making a Difference started with the idea of giving scholarships for students with autism to go to college. That was actually one of our very, very first initiatives that we did. So we started out just giving one scholarship out a year. And now we give out a scholarship every spring, every summer, and every fall. So it's been amazing to kind of see how many people in our community have also, after we got our 501c3 nonprofit status, giving to our nonprofit to fund our scholarship fund. So now we've given over 60 scholarships in the past 7 years. And we also host inclusion events in our communities to get our special needs community engaged. Because one of the worst things I see as a coach and mentor to many kids and also adults on the autism spectrum is that sometimes they're in the house for 8 hours every weekend watching television and really not engaged with the world. And if we give them more opportunities, that's kind of become a big part of KFM's mission as well. So we've been around since 2011, and I hope we can continue our work for many years to come.
So this scholarship is designed to send kids with autism to college?
Correct, yes. So it's currently, our spring application is actually available currently, and the deadline for that scholarship is April 26th. And it's open to high school seniors who are about to graduate, along with current college students with no geographic restrictions. So we've given scholarships to people in Canada before and internationally as well as along in the United States.
Okay, and to find out about that, you can go to kfmmakingadifference.org/scholarship programs for adults with autism.
Yes.
Okay. And I know recently I didn't realize Danny Bowman had posted that she was a recipient of one of your scholarships.
I love Danny.
Don't we all love Danny? And what I love about that is that Danny not only used that to go to college, but Danny is already training other people how to do animation. So look at how far your scholarship dollars are going, Kerry. That's amazing. So, what we haven't said, and I feel sort of ridiculous cycling back to it, but in case somebody doesn't know your story, Kerry, tell them a little bit about, I just want to say that you, on your own right, without having said your story, are an impressive young man, but then add to it that you were once diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum, correct?
Yes, I was diagnosed with PDD-NOS at the age of 4, and I was actually completely nonverbal until I was about 2.5 years old. Didn't say my first complete sentence until I was 7, and had a lot of challenges growing up. Experts and professionals said that I was on the severe end of the autism spectrum, and it was at a time where the numbers of autism were about 1 in every 1,000 being diagnosed in the United States, and now it's 1 in 59. And my parents became my greatest champions and advocates, and through many years of therapy, almost over 15 years of therapy, I was able to overcome a lot of my obstacles and pursue a post-secondary education, but also pursue the opportunity for full-time employment, now self-employment today. And I see a lot of the dreams that I've kind of pushed myself for many years come true, although I have many, many more to come.
What do you consider, Kerry, the greatest key to your success?
The greatest key is, I think, being able to self-advocate for myself. I realized once I got into college that the safety net of having an child study team and an individual education plan were not going to be there for me once I reached adulthood. I think that, so definitely being able to self-advocate and realize that I need to stick up for myself and stand up for myself was very, very crucial. And then just really therapy in particular, especially focused on the arts. Because one thing I don't see enough in the school systems, especially in schools we speak in, K through 12, are strong art programs, both in music and in theater. And those were the two therapies that tremendously helped me from my sensory challenges to also my public speaking today. So those were probably the two things.
Wow. Impressive. Well, and Kerry, you mentioned that you have other books as well. What website should we direct people to go to learn more about you and about your many accomplishments and get the wide breadth of all the books that you've written?
Absolutely. So my website is kerrymagro.com. And I also have a Facebook fan page called The Special Community, where we highlight people impacted by diagnosis, where I share all my book information there as well. And that's available at facebook.com/specialcommunity.
Kerry, you are a star.
Thank you, Kerry. And we wish you the best of luck with this new book.
And congratulations,
yes,
Dr.
congratulations.
Magro. I'm so happy for your parents. Like, they must be bursting with pride.
They are very, very happy. They actually sat in the green room while I was giving my defense the other day, and we were just all very, very thrilled. Got to hang out with the entire family yesterday, and we're still in shock. But we're very, very happy.
There's a doctor in the family now. Can't you just hear, it's Dr. Magro. I absolutely love it. Kerry, thank you so much for all that you do and being such an inspiration. We love you.
I love you too, and thanks for having me, and congratulations for all the amazing work over the years. Just, Shannon, you just mentioning how long we've been doing these interviews. It's great to see how much Autism-live has really meant to our community.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll be in touch.
Yes, definitely. Talk soon.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. Such an amazing young man.
Very exciting.
And so wonderful. And I feel so privileged that we've been able to watch him. The first time that we interviewed him, and he was just graduating from college, and he's so well spoken, and it was just, oh my gosh, this young man, he's just going to be on fire. But there's no moss growing underneath his feet. He just
definitely
keeps
not. He keeps on going.
And then when he decided and announced that he was going to go get a PhD, and I was like, oh my goodness, look at him, and here we are. We blink. I mean, a lot of work for him.
Right.
But we blink, and
there he is.
Dr. Magro. It just makes me very excited. All right, we've got a bunch of
take a break. We've got some in the news.
We do need to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk about mostly good things. So stick with us.
Okay.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman, Executive Director of TACA. We're gonna bake again.
All right.
It's my lovely assistant.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Lucero.
We've heard so many people go, I want a decent chocolate chip cookie for my kid to eat. We've got all our dry ingredients. So I've got the flour, I've got the flaxseed meal, baking soda, baking powder, our gum, or xanthan gum.
Great.
So we're gonna get started in the mixer here. So there's our dry ingredients. I do have brown sugar. We did cut this down. And the one way to do that is my favorite, and that's maple syrup. I'm using egg for this recipe, but we could use more arrowroot and also the flaxseed meal. So I'll go ahead and throw my eggs in here, which I love doing. So, and then the last thing is a shortening and gluten-free casein-free butter replacement. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in. I've let it sit out for a while so it's nice and soft. So let's go ahead and mix this thing well. These are dairy-free, soy-free, and I really like them. Again, Enjoy Life is a great product. It's also net-free. And chocolate chips are a personal thing. I won't judge you if you use the whole bag.
I would.
I know, right? So here we go. Great recipe. It's the nice consistency. Everything's ready to go, so we can enjoy our cookies here in just about 10 minutes. We want to give it a kind of like a couple inches between each cookie. You know, a lot of people are really concerned about aluminum, so what I've done is I laid down my natural brown parchment paper, and Jen's helping out putting the cookies down. So we're separating the nice baked good that's all organic from the aluminum cookie sheets. So let's go put these in. So magic oven. allows me to pull the last ones out. And voila.
Yum, those are good.
Really great cookies. I'll let you have a bite so you can do my Vanna White there too. Yeah, these taste pretty good.
Really good.
We're going to come back later after I gain 5 pounds and eat this entire tray.
For sure.
You know, more feedback is good. So if there's something you want us to convert, like another recipe or maybe a relative made, just let us know. autismlive@gmail.com. You can go to Facebook, or there's thousands of recipes on the TACA website just waiting for you to explore. You can go to tacanow, TACANOW.org, and we'll see you next time at Autism Live.
Bye.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get
Right, we're back, and we've got some in the news here. A very sweet story, really, from Woodbridge Township, New Jersey. A little boy with autism called 911 for help when his teddy bear went missing, and then he hung up, which apparently when someone hangs up after calling 911, they're obliged to go and check out what the situation is.
Right. It's one of the reasons why they ask that, you know, you don't hang up, because it can be very costly when that happens. But they came, they saw, they helped rescue the teddy bear. And if you, in your news feed, if you didn't see pictures of that little boy and hugging that police officer, it was very heartwarming.
Very heartwarming. And by the way, the officer had training from POAC Autism Services, which assists in autism recognition and response scenarios. So he knew what to do when he was confronted with this child and the problem.
Which is amazing, and we all need to be fighting for that in our communities, that your police staff is trained. And I gotta say, you know, call over to the police department. You know, everybody thinks it's like so far away and somebody else will do it, but you know, we all have a responsibility to our kiddos, and I was very lucky that my child was raised in a community where Emily Island lived. And so Emily Island had already trained the police, right? I didn't know that. I didn't know that she had already done that, but we called over to the police department because we were asked to by card to make him aware of who first responders were, because they were going to work on that lesson about people in your community. So we had to drive around and take pictures of all the stores that we shopped in.
Right.
Did you ever have to do this?
No.
Oh my gosh. So we went around and took pictures of Trader Joe's and, you know, and Walmart and Kmart and every store that we ever went to. And then we had to get first responders, and they wanted them to be real and in the community, and they wanted us to take pictures of the trucks and the offices and the people and whatever. But you know, it was such a great gift for us, because I called the fire department, I called the police department, and I said, can I bring my son over to meet and greet and talk? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. Now, they did say on the phone, they said, you can stop by anytime that you want to. If we're having an emergency, that will supersede your appointment. So, you know, it's not a guarantee that the truck will be here, that you get to talk, whatever. But I know once we went to the fire department and they turned us away and said, you got to come back another time. We came back another time. They, you know, they dressed him up in the suit. I took him as many pictures. They had him sit in the driver's seat. He got to sit in the back. I mean, it was so great, so that he was not afraid of firemen.
Right. Wyatt was afraid of firemen because he had a bad experience at school where his regular teacher was out that day, and they forced him to sit in the fire truck with a siren on.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
so
that's not a thing to do.
So there can be very bad ways to approach this and good ways to approach this.
But if you go, and what we chose to do was that we went with a therapist. We had a therapist with us, and we drove over to the fire department. We did the same thing with the police department. And Jem had a bad experience at the police department because every Halloween in that community, they would have the weekend of Halloween, they would have a big thing where they would put all their police equipment out, and they would turn the jail into a haunted house. And there was one side that was super scary, and then there was another side that was all Winnie the Pooh stuff, right? And nothing would do. He was probably 4, and he wanted to go to the grown-up one, and I said, no, you can't go to that. And they said, no, there's no way he can go to that. But we walked up close to the door so I could show him, and he could hear people screaming. And then he was, you know, traumatized, and he didn't want to have anything to do with police after that. So we went back to the police station so that he could see that there was nobody screaming. But you know, he saw the bars,
Right.
and I got to say that made a big impression upon him.
Mhm.
That he was like, I don't ever want to go there, and that's not a bad thing to teach people. So in any case, you know, back to the teddy bear. What a wonderful thing! But please. Don't wait for somebody else to come. Go to your police department. Introduce them at least to your child and tell them where you live and let them know.
Right, let them know you have a child on the spectrum.
They have a registry that they can write down so that, you know, heaven forbid you ever have to call the police to come. That will pop up, that they will know this is a child on the autism spectrum.
And they'll know how to deal with them accordingly.
Well, let's hope. And
hopefully they'll have the training.
And you can work with them to do training. And I know Emily and her son were just here a couple of weeks ago. They're happy to go ask your police officers if they like training. And then you can help to arrange that, change the world for a lot of people.
Another big story in the news, Amy Schumer has talked about her husband being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, in this case Asperger's.
Can we talk about how much I love this?
Yeah, her husband Christopher Fisher, she talks about it in her Netflix special, Amy Schumer, Growing. And she even goes on to say that his autism symptoms are what makes her love him.
And made her fall in love with him. I just want to cry. When I saw this story, I mean, I love Amy Schumer. I don't love all of her comedy. I have to say that.
Right.
But, you know, I don't love anybody's all of their comedy, right? But I think that she's a very funny woman.
Yes, she is.
And I think that she's going to have a brilliant career in film because I think her films are hilarious. But the fact that, let's face it, they didn't have to come out and tell this.
No.
They could have kept this very private and to themselves.
He's a chef, if I'm not mistaken, right?
And he's a person who's moving through his life and does not need a label.
No.
Right? But for whatever reason, they made the decision to come out with this and be very open, and they've done it in a beautiful way that I think is so helpful to our community. We just really want to thank both of them. And I love that she says this, that, you know, she says, well, it turns out that all the quirky things that I fell in love with him for, those are the things that identify him as being on the autism spectrum.
Right.
How much did every mother of every boy in the world who's on the spectrum need to hear that?
Yeah, they definitely needed to hear it. It was very encouraging.
Yay, Amy Schumer, you're autism. You and your husband are autism heroes for today, because you've done a lot of good by just coming forward and saying that. Thank you so much. Now, on the other side, there's an article that came out yesterday in a lot of different places. We're featuring it from the Health Day News, but it came out widely. And the title of the article, I talked a little bit about this with Dr. Graham-Pichet on the air this morning during Ask Dr. Doreen. The title of the article is, Can Some Kids Outgrow Autism? And of course, that ticks me off, you know, right down to the floor right there.
Tell us why.
Well, the term outgrow, like if we tear it apart, I don't have a problem with it, but the connotation of outgrow suggests that you're just hanging out doing nothing special and it just organically happens and you outgrow autism. That autism can fade away and take a back seat. And that has so many misconceptions in it that it makes me want to stomp my feet and yell. Then as you read the article, in the beginning, you know, it tells you the history of autism, but you have to go several paragraphs down before it says it's possible that some kids are misdiagnosed and other kids just outgrow it. Right? And then you have to go further down and it says that kids who have gotten an intense amount of treatment get to the point where they no longer qualify for the diagnosis.
Right.
I think it's very misleading writing. And I don't think that many people have time to read the entire article to see where it gets to. And I just want us all to be clear that, and in my travels, and I go a lot of places, talk to a lot of people on the spectrum, talk to a lot of parents of people on the spectrum. I have yet to meet a single person who says, oh, yes, I no longer qualify for a diagnosis of autism. I don't have a disability, and it just poof happened. I have yet to meet that person.
You've met them because they've had early intensive intervention?
I have met many people who have said, I no longer qualify for an autism spectrum disorder, disorder. Hear me when I say that, because that's the other part of this that makes me a little bit nuts. And who say to me, you know, I no longer have a disability related to my autism. And they don't. They don't need any special accommodations. They don't need any extra support in their life. And when you say to them, how did that happen? I mean, we just talked to Kerry Magro.
Right.
And Kerry Magro identifies himself as being on the autism spectrum. But I don't know, we should have asked him if he identifies as being somebody with a disability. Because I don't know, and I don't want to presume, but you know, it would be interesting to hear what his response is. But I have met many people on the autism spectrum who say, I no longer qualify for someone with a disability.
Right.
We see that all the time. Does that mean that their brain is not still differently wired than yours and mine?
Right, right.
No.
Right.
So when people say, well, did the autism go away? No. What I'm talking about is people who no longer qualify for an autism spectrum disorder. They could still be on the autism spectrum, but there's no disorder to it, right? Because this idea of you change them into someone else, you know, they are who they are. They just know, they have skills now that they no longer have the disability.
Right.
But I have yet to meet the person who can say that when we talked to Kerry and we said, what do you attribute? And he says, oh, I had a ton of therapy.
Right.
I had years of intensive
Yes.
therapy. And I did music and I did art and I did theater and that all helped me. That's not outgrowing anything.
No, it's not. It's having intensive treatment and therapy.
Kerry didn't outgrow his inability to be able to speak.
Right.
That was a lot of work, and he says, my parents worked really hard and he worked really hard. And it makes me mad when people say outgrow, because it negates all the hard work. When we think about our kids and how hard our kids work to get where they are, whether that is losing the disorder diagnosis or not, because for a lot of people, that isn't what happens.
Right, not going to happen.
Right, but still, the work that went into the progress that they made, you know,
oh, yeah.
I know,
yeah.
It's epic.
It is epic.
It would be like, you know, saying that somebody outgrew, you know, that they worked hard to get a PhD and, well, they outgrew their high school diploma.
Right, right, right.
No.
Right.
Like, that's the wrong word.
Right.
You worked hard and got to something else, but you didn't outgrow your high school diploma.
Right, right. Good analogy.
Anyway.
Okay, well, let's see. We're out of time, so tell us what you have tomorrow.
So tomorrow we're not doing a show. I mentioned this earlier because I'm off to a robotics tournament.
Okay.
And I'm also speaking to a class at USC tomorrow, which is very fabulous.
How exciting.
So that's a very wonderful thing, and I'm excited to go and do that. But we are back next Wednesday, as I mentioned before, and have 2 full shows next week. Very excited about that. And then that is the last week that we will be on Wednesdays and Thursdays only. Starting on April 1st, we're moving to our new format where we will be on Monday through Friday, 1 hour. So it will be from 10 to 11 each day. So Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy will then air on Friday.
Okay.
That is when it will then. So you guys will be looking for that. We'll give you all that information next week.
Okay, good.
Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye for now.